Persona 4 Golden's finally a Nintendo and Microsoft platform, so given that a lot of Switch and Xbox owners probably never got around to playing this on Steam, this is going to be a lot of people's first experience with this game. Seeing how there really aren't that many titles out there like it can be pretty overwhelming or even confusing for newcomers. Like, sure, the Switch and Series X do already have Persona 5 Royal, so you'd think that the majority of these gamers would at least get the gist of things when it comes to 4 Golden. But while that may be true to some extent, there are some key differences that you should be aware of before you start, and if you give me a wee bit, I'll explain what a few of those are without spoiling anything or telling me exactly what to do. Alright, so this isn't going to be a walkthrough or anything like that, or really just general guidelines and vague advice to avoid ruining the actual fun to one of my all-time favorite games, Persona 4 Golden. If you never played Persona 5, 4 Golden does a pretty good job of explaining the basics of managing your time between living your ordinary life out and dungeon crawling, but basically the gist here is that you're a Japanese high school student who moves in with his detective uncle and 6-year-old cousin Nanako in a small town called Inaba. Then not long after that, some people are found dead, and then you and your friends enter an alternate dimension through a TV, only to find that these butthole monsters called shadows who were created from suppressed emotions in the real world are behind it all. The only way to fight these shadows is by using your personas, of course, which are basically spirits that can be controlled, kind of like Stan's from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And of course, these personas can only be used in this alternate dimension, aka the TV world. And oh yeah, there's also these goons inside a limo who visit you in your dreams to help you out. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, but again, I'm trying to keep things as simple as possible as far as the story goes, but basically, it's Scooby-Doo if it were an M-rated JRPG with life simulation mechanics and less cringe. If you want to strengthen your persona so you can whoop the Shadows' hamburger candy asses though, then you're gonna need to do some stuff in the real world like join sports teams and clubs at school, work a job, and of course hang out with your friends, as well as grind through enemies inside the TV world dungeons. Like Persona 5 though, managing your time wisely is a huge part of the experience, since every time you hang out with a friend you lose half a day, and in order to hang out with certain people, you'll have to have strong enough social qualities such as understanding, knowledge, expression, courage, and diligence. And if you want to improve your social skills, you gotta do things that take time like read books and go fishing. Trying to balance out hanging out with your buds and developing social skills is part of the fun, but I strongly recommend prioritizing your time on social links over life skills, since you can pretty much work on yourself whenever you want, whereas all your social links are only available on certain days. Plus, you'll usually come across plenty of freebies when it comes to the social skills just by spending time with people, some of which are your school activities or jobs, which you also get paid for, by the way. The game gives you choices on which clubs or sports you want to partake in, but ultimately these just lead to different side stories that don't really affect the main one, so it doesn't really matter what you choose, they're just meant to give the game some replayability more than anything else. Don't get me wrong though, social qualities are definitely important, seeing as how you need them to be at a certain level for specific characters to even consider hanging out with your sorry ass, so sometimes you may want to focus on a skill over certain social links at specific times, but that's for you to decide on when to make these judgment calls. Although, I would strongly advise you ride your scooter as often as possible once you get it to unlock more areas and options. In general, though, I think it's way more time efficient to focus on your social links over your qualities, cause seeing as how the TV world's affected by how people feel in the real world, spending time on your social links will strengthen their bonds and eventually level the rankings up. When party members rank up, they'll learn new skills and helpful tactics for battles, and if it's everybody else, then you're pretty much only gonna get experience bonuses for fusions. But, of course, to get the true, real, final we mean it this time ending, you're gonna need to max specific characters out by their deadlines. You're gonna have to look a walkthrough up for specifics on what to say to who when during your hangout, since, again, that's not what we're doing here, but I will say that while you do have the option to spend time with people at night, most of the time it's not gonna lead to a rank up, unless, of course, it's one of the social links that are only available at night. So if you see a character during the night who you know is about to gain a level next time you hang out with him, then you should definitely spend your time with somebody else who needs a little more bonding so that you'll have 2 characters ready to rank up in the daytime. And if there's really no one to hang out with at night and your social skills are up to par, then you should probably go to the shrine and get a fortune for one of your friends, because that will improve your bond with them. And look, it's a hell of a lot harder to max everyone out on your first playthrough here than it is in Persona 5 Royal, but it is possible, and to make things easier, make sure to always have a persona of the same arcana whoever you're hanging out with on your person before committing to the hangout. Because trust me, that's going to give you a lot of extra days in in-game time. I feel like telling you who you're supposed to hang out with when's kind of a spoiler, so I'm gonna be a dick and make you spend 45 seconds Googling if you don't want to risk a second playthrough, but I will tell you to make sure to help Nanako with her homework, if for no other reason than to not be a dick. It goes without saying that you should probably prioritize maxing your party members' social ranks out for the in-battle benefits alone, but as far as that's concerned, you should probably focus on your Navigator Rise as soon as she becomes available above all else. She may never directly participate in battle, but she does make exploring the dungeons a hell of a lot easier, which will save you health and spirit points in the long run. Using your personas against the shadows in the TV world's crucial, but using magic consumes SP, and since items are restored or rare outside of the TV world, you'll want to conserve as much energy as possible while you're exploring, since you'll really want to finish these dungeons as fast as possible, ideally in one session, seeing as how it pretty much uses an entire day up. Just like Persona 5, the game gives you time limits on how long you have to complete dungeons every time there's a new one available, except here the game doesn't flat out tell you how long you have left, you just kinda have to figure it out yourself by looking at the weather. Basically, if you see that it's raining multiple days in a row, then you better wrap things up before the next sunny day, but typically, you'll probably have around 2 to 3 weeks every time a new dungeon pops up. Just like Mementos in Persona 5, the dungeons are randomly generated, and each have about 8 to 12-ish floors, so basically, just try to make it to the top and beat the bosses as soon as possible. The key to doing this is to stock up on as many SP restoring items as possible outside of the TV world, like at the vending machines that are only restocked once per week, and by swapping your party members out throughout your explorations. Seeing as how you don't really have that many party members early on in the game, there's really no shame in taking an extra day to finish the first dungeon or two if you must, but make sure to at least explore on days where you don't really have anything else going on, because you really don't want to waste time that can be spent building a social link, especially since the margin for error to 100%ing this game on the first playthrough is a lot stricter than Persona 5 Royal. Also, along with buying SP and health restoring items, the bills for weapons and equipment can add up pretty quick, not to mention constantly buying personas to match the arcana or your social links, so before leaving the TV world, make sure to grind for money and experience for as long as humanly possible. And like, if your only goal in life's to 100% Persona 4 Golden on your first playthrough, then you can technically spend as much time as you want on the first floor of the first dungeon grinding so you never have to worry about it, but assuming you want to actually, have fun, and try to find a good balance between grinding and having a life outside of Persona 4 Golden. Grinding's absolutely necessary, but earning enough to make sure you have enough health restoring items and equipment really shouldn't take that long, especially with the shuffle time bonuses. If you don't plan on using a specific party member for a dungeon though, then maybe not stress about upgrading everybody's equipment every time there's a new dungeon if you're tight on funds. Either way, just make sure to mess around with the fusion so you can get stronger demons. I can give you advice on how to get the strongest demons, but experimenting's part of the fun if you ask me. Although fusions do get a little more complicated when it comes to Margaret's social link that's centered around doing specific fusions. I'll leave it up to you whether or not you want to figure these out yourself through trial and error, or just look them up, but personally, I won't think less of you if you take the lazy route. I can't say the same thing for the hardcore Persona fans though, they'll probably lose all respect for you, but you know what? If you're having fun, frig 'em. As far as the rest of the game goes, though, make sure to always have a little bit of spare time before starting a session, unless you plan on grinding for money or experience, cause Persona cutscenes have been known to be longer than that snake in my dad's basement. Also, try to keep in mind that what you say to your social links here matters a lot more than it did in Persona 5 Royal. Obviously, saying the right things leads to quicker rank ups, but if you say the wrong thing, you can actually level somebody's rank down in this game. Maybe this game's being a bit of a dick by having this mechanic, seeing as how it wasn't in any of the other Persona games, but the only way to trigger it's to be a dick in the first place, so maybe just be nice to your friends and this won't be a problem. Ultimately, though, the whole point of all the social links, qualities, dungeons, and all that is so you can get the best possible ending, and unlike Persona 5 Royal, 4 Golden's path to the best ending isn't nearly as obvious. Don't get me wrong, it's not insanely cryptic to where you have to look it up online, but there's way more chances to mess it up here. I mean, instead of simply not being a whole ass to your friends, you gotta use your noodle a little bit here on top of being a decent human being. And I know I said no spoilers, but I've gotta at least warn you that on the last day when you're saying your goodbyes to your friends, don't go back home when the game suggests it's the only thing left to do. I guess that's not a spoiler since I'm not necessarily talking about the story itself, but I beat this game 3 times without having any idea that I didn't get the super duper awesome ultra perfect ending, cause I never looked any of the spoilers up online, so I trusted the game not to trick me into thinking there wasn't anybody left to talk to. I mean, that'd be like Resident Evil suggesting you throw a key away that you still need. I mean, maybe I'm a moron, but I thought this was really lame, and I'd hate for anybody to be expected to spend dozens of hours replaying the game for the best ending, so I had to at least give you a heads up on this. Again, I'm not going to tell you what to say when or where, but god damn it, make sure to look around more after you say your goodbyes to everybody, because there's definitely more left to do. Other than that, though, I think that's pretty much all you need to know if you've already played Persona 5, or really even if this is your first Persona game in general. But I guess my last bit of advice would be to not stress so much about getting the ultra ending on your first playthrough, though, because even the less than perfect endings are still pretty good in my opinion. I mean, after all, the best ending for the golden version of the game wasn't even in the original PS2 version, so it's not like you're going to feel gypped if you don't do everything. If you don't get the golden ending, though, and like the game enough to play through it again, then there is still a lot of replayability to make a second playthrough feel fresh. I mean, you can always work different jobs, play a different sport, date somebody different, or of course date everybody in the game, so the most important advice really is to just have fun. Well, you know, that and help Nanako with her homework, you scumbag. I suppose I should make a video about playing Persona 3 Portable after 5 Royal, but to be honest, I've only ever played the FES version of the game, and I'm not exactly sure of every last update, so I'm probably not the person to ask. However, one piece of advice I can give you when it comes to the P3P version of the game, though, is that you probably shouldn't date the 10-year-old Ken when you're playing as the female protagonist, and if you don't believe me, then you should check out this video I made with Chris Hansen telling you why not, but if you'll excuse me, though, I gotta go to hell. Later!